It's Monday, March 25th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On Barnstable Today, we learn more about an upcoming meeting for Community Development Block Grant Planning, get a science lesson on water quality in our ponds and lakes, and Representative Will Crocker talks about Nero's bill. Now for a look at municipal news and notes. MassDOT will hold an intersection improvement project open house on March 27th for the Iano Road, Route 28, and Yarmouth Road intersection improvement project in Barnstable. The goal of this project is to improve safety and traffic operations by providing a complete street to better accommodate motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians. As a stakeholder, MassDOT appreciates your unique perspective and invites you to join the project team for an open house at the Hyannis Transportation Center. Attendees will have an opportunity to talk about intersection improvements, design details, construction timeline, and traffic impacts. The project team will be available to answer any questions you may have related to the project. Session 1, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., Session 2, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Community Development Block Grant Program Annual Action Plan Workshop for 2019 is scheduled for this Wednesday. Kathleen Gerard from Planning and Development joins us in studio to share the details. Community Development Block Grants are a big piece of the puzzle for housing and all sorts of economic development here in the town of Barnstable. With me today, Kathleen Gerard. You're going to talk a little bit about community block grants, development block grants, and what they are, because some people don't know, and then a meeting that's coming up that's people can have a voice in that. So let's say a little bit, what is a community development block grant?
Sure. Community Development Block Grant, also known as CDBG, a little easier to say, is federal money that the town receives from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for programs and projects that primarily benefit low and moderate income residents by providing housing, affordable housing, economic opportunities, and a suitable living environment.
So it's a partnership from federal down to the local level.
That's true.
We sometimes don't think of the federal having that kind of partnership with us. Talk about some of the things that these community grants have actually happened here in the town of Barnstable.
Sure. For the 2018 program year, we received about $287,000, and we funded some programs for residents and then programs for agencies that can also use these funds. Our resident programs included a home buyer assistance program where first-time home buyers looking to buy a house in Hyannis might be eligible to receive up to $75,000 to buy down the price of their first home.
Wow.
You know, there are some income requirements. They do need to get a pre-approval loan from a accredited bank, and it has to be their primary residence. But that was a great program that we did this year for residents. Another one was the micro enterprise loan program, which if they're a small business owner, 5 or fewer employees, including the owners, they might be eligible for assistance to either establish, stabilize, or expand their microenterprise business. They could apply for funds for working capital or equipment and stuff to get them started. And we partnered with Coastal Community Capital. If anyone's interested, they can contact them directly or the planning department for information about that program. And another residential program we had was a youth scholarship program. So we partnered with the Hyannis Youth and Community Center and to provide families in Barnstable, if they have children that want to participate in the various youth programs, it could be basketball, hockey, skating, the summer camps, they can receive financial aid to participate in the programs to put their kids through.
These are awesome programs.
They're pretty good.
So I love the whole home buyer assistance, because buying your first home, and especially here on Cape Cod, you know, prices have been inflated over the years, is to have that extra help to get into your first home. That's awesome.
Yeah, very needed, especially now that the prices are getting out of reach. So
Right.
It's been a good program.
And the micro business loans too, having been a small business owner, you know, those types of opportunities, especially when you look to grow your business or you need a piece of equipment, so important.
Exactly. Perfect.
Yeah, and then I didn't know about the scholarships. That's fantastic because all the programs at the HYCC have sometimes a cost associated with them, and sometimes families just, especially with multiple kids, can't afford those.
Exactly.
That's great. So tell us a little bit about what's coming up. You have a meeting in March 27th?
Yeah, March 27th at 3 o'clock in the Planning and Development Conference Room, which is right here in Town Hall on the 3rd floor. And the purpose of the meeting is to gather public input on our action plan. And what the action plan is, it's a plan that we have to do. HUD requires us to submit an action plan every year, which outlines how we intend to spend the money towards meeting the goals and priorities that are listed in our 5-year consolidated plan. And we invite the public to come and participate in this process. So, give us our opinions, comments on how we should prioritize the expenditures of these funds. So that meeting's again March 27th at 3 o'clock in Town Hall 3rd floor. And anyone who cannot attend the meeting can also submit comments in writing to us. And if I receive it before 2:30 the day of the meeting, I'll read them into the meeting, so your comments will be heard. And I'll include it in our draft action plan that we post. And we'll allow another 30 days for public comments after I post it. I expect to post the plan on or before April 3rd. It will be on the town website. We'll also have copies in this office, in the Planning and Development office upstairs. So if they can't make the meeting, you can submit a letter, some comments in writing, and they have if they want it included in the draft, get it to me before March 27th, 2:30.
Right.
But you still got another 30 days. If I get it before May 3rd, we will include those comments and any responses in our final submission to HUD for approval.
Right. Why is it important for residents to kind of come to these types of meetings? People are like, I'm not going to do that. It's the middle of the afternoon. But public input's really important, isn't it?
It is. It helps us to determine what the priorities in our community are. So, we had a 5-year plan that we identified the needs and priorities, which was also a public process. So we had several meetings for that. We'll be doing that again next year. And then each year we're like, are we still on track? Is this still a priority right now? Things are changing. The market, the housing market's changing, and other things are changing. So it's good to hear from our residents and other interested parties on how we can, make this program successful.
Excellent. Anything else you want residents to know?
No, just if you want to come to the meeting, please come by on March 27th, and if not, send us comments. And you can call. Any questions about the program, we have additional information on the town website and in the Planning and Development office upstairs.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Kathleen.
Thank you.
The quality of our water in our ponds, lakes, rivers, and streams plays an important role in public health. Karen Malkus Benjamin, Coastal Health Resource Coordinator for the Board of Health, joins us in studio to talk about cyanobacteria, the toxic blue-green algae blooms that pose serious health risks to humans and pets. It's all about water quality these days in our oceans and in our ponds and lakes. With me today, Karen Malkus Benjamin. You are a Coastal Health Resource Coordinator for the town of Barnstable.
Yes.
It's a long title. What do you do?
So I have many facets to my job, but the main focus is that I actually follow the state bathing beach regulations and protect public health on recreational waters. And how that started was in 2000, the state passed a law that required operators of beaches to monitor their beaches and meet certain standards for bacteria that are indicators, and that was to reduce risk to the public from pathogens. 2010, they decided we needed to permit the beaches, so part of my job is actually permitting beaches and having the operators understand what that entails. And then now, in the last 5 years, we're having more concerns about other types of creatures in the water that are impacting our health. So my life has evolved.
Just like it does in the water.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting, there is always an enormous amount of discussion around nitrogen in our waters, and it's a huge issue and challenge for Cape Cod as well as for the town of Barnstable. But there's other things in other waters that are important as well to public health as well as to the health of the water itself. So
Right.
talk a little bit about what might be found in ponds and lakes and streams here in the town of Barnstable.
Yeah, well, the first thing you have to think about is all these waters are not swimming pools, they're ecosystems, and they're complex organisms and plants and the physical environment that work together. So the minute we start disrupting that with whatever we're doing, whether it's just putting a lawn in, or building a house, or pouring things down our septic system, we're going to impact that ecosystem. So there are all sorts of things in the water, and we're encouraging them by providing them with nutrients, which are nitrogen and phosphorus. And then also some of the other things we're adding, like pesticides and herbicides, change the balance in the system. So it's very complicated. There's no one clear answer, but monitoring it and sort of keeping track of what's going on is the best approach we can take, and we get guidance, of course, from the state and the EPA. But I think that what worries me most recently are the cyanobacteria blooms that are in the fresh water.
And cyanobacteria, that's a scary word. What is it?
Well, it's as the word suggests, cyanobacteria are a type of bacteria, but they used to be called blue-green algae because they behave like algae. They photosynthesize, and during the day they produce oxygen. And so they even think billions of years ago they might have been responsible for creating our atmosphere. So they're not completely bad guys, and they're everywhere, ubiquitous in the environment.
Right.
You can find them in soil, in fresh water. There's some species that are in marine waters. So they're a part of our world, but they are very adaptable. They've been around for a billion years, as I said. So if you give them the right conditions, they're going to go blooming. And they're not like the pathogens we measure for at the beaches normally. They don't infect you. What happens is they produce toxins as part of their basic metabolic behaviors. And so those toxins are like being poisoned. So if a dog or a child or anybody swimming and they are exposed to the toxin, you're being poisoned. And there are many kinds of toxins that they produce. The problem is they don't always do that, and we don't know why. So what's made my job hard is sort of not being overprotective, but not being underprotective of our public. So
Right.
it's a challenge.
It is a challenge, and we think about this. So the town of Barnstable has, and I am amazed, there are hundreds of ponds and lakes in our town, it seems like. I mean,
182.
It's really an enormous amount of water
Right.
that has to be covered, and a lot of these are public spaces.
Yeah, that's a big problem too, because as I said, there's a law to protect bathing beaches and the permitted beaches. There are no laws or regulations about all the waters out there. There's guidance. The World Health Organization, the EPA, even our state, the toxicology department has recommendations for what we can do. But Barnstable, I feel very lucky. Tom McKean has allowed me, and the Board of Health have given me authority to actually pursue this in sort of ahead of the problem. We started in 2015 by really purposefully monitoring before we're just reacting. And I think our new program is really evolving, as I said, into a way that we can anticipate blooms. And a lot of that has to do actually with the group that we're going to talk about in April,
Right.
in April. Nancy Leland and Hillary Snook both have trained us and we're using their research to sort of do a new monitoring protocol.
Right. So there's an event coming up on April 5th at the Harborside Room at the county in conjunction with Association to Preserve Cape Cod. This is really dedicated to this particular issue. So we always see lots of other events around nitrogen, but this is really about the cyanobacteria.
Right, especially as a health official. I mean, nitrogen is problematic to our estuaries and creates a lot of ecosystem damage and a lot of blooms and stuff, but I'm worried about people being exposed to toxins. So I wanted to, as I said, get us sort of ahead of it and learn more about it. And the program, we've been collaborating with APCC to find a way to do this that's effective and efficient for a few people to go out there and at least, start getting some information. What I'd like to say, though, is we can't get everywhere. Like you said, there are a lot of ponds, people say 182, and there's no way in one day, or even with my lovely assistants, that we could get to them all. So I rely on the public, too, to let me know if something's going on. Again, I can only really manage public areas, and a pond has many nooks and crannies, so we can't get to all of them, but at least we can alert the public to pay attention. And I think that's really important to make informed decisions about your health, your pet's health, and your children, of course. Right. Hardest, of course, is to reach out to visitors who I don't necessarily have direct contact with.
Right. So what are we looking for in these ponds? if we wanted to contact you with a concern, what would we be looking for to give you that information?
Well, often the blooms are very obvious. They cloud the waters, and you can't, when you go in knee deep or to hip deep, you can't see your feet. So cloudy water is usually a sign. Could be other things that make the water cloudy, but that's usually a first sign. Also strange colors. They can be a bright green, a bright blue, some are even red. So colors that don't look right. Smells, some of them produce unusual smells, kind of earthy, smells like lawn cuttings or strong. If they're decaying, they even smell horrible, like you get, you know, you want to fall over. But the big thing that people see right away are the scum lines. We call them scum lines, and they wash up on shore, and they're very brilliant colors. And again, they just don't look right. They don't belong there.
Okay, and how would they contact you with that information?
They can always call the health division and ask for me specifically. There's a web page that we have that they can contact me on. I also would invite people to be on an alert list. So for specific ponds, if there's something going on, I send out an email, or they can come back, you know, tell me what's going on there too. I have a lot of residents who are regularly in contact with me. And what we do is we basically go out and sample the water, either just with a scoop if it's scummy, or we actually do a tow net with a plankton tow. So there are lots of ways we handle it, but visually is the first step.
Visual is the first step. And does this affect the growth of good ecosystems in the ponds as well? As like, we always talk about invasive species in our lakes and ponds too, but does that bacteria actually promote other things?
It's, again, very complicated. In some cases, like the treatment, we found in, for example, Long Pond, Centerville, that the treatment for the invasive actually has encouraged the cyanobacteria, which is really frustrating and scary, because the toxins have gotten worse rather than better, and we're trying to solve another problem. So it is complicated and not very clear, direct line from point A to B. What I would say is, though, if you're seeing blooms, there's something wrong with the balance in the ecosystem. It's telling you. It's more than a canary. The elephant in the coal mine, as it were. Yeah.
Right. And then the event at the Harborside Room at the County Complex, good for residents to go, as well as people who are concerned with the environment or work for environmental?
I think everyone's invited, absolutely. I think we're also trying to get a lot of townspeople, other health officials from other towns, make this a bigger Cape thing. It's a problem throughout the Cape, and the more we work together and share data. Also, the APCC is starting a new map tool that they'll discuss that will be available for everyone in all towns to use and see where things are going on, where things are actually being monitored or not, because that's good to know. Because a lot of people just assume, oh, my pond's being tested. May not be being tested. But on that note, though, I want to say that individuals can do a lot to help their ponds on their own. Number one, maybe start an association if there isn't one. Pay attention to things in their own yard and in their own lifestyles that can help water quality. And a lot of that just has to do with the frontage in front of the pond, but even if you're way back, how you treat the land and what you put in your septic tank, or what you throw out or don't buy. I mean, there are things you don't need to buy that you may not need or you don't want in your water. If you don't want it in your water, don't put it on the ground.
Right, exactly. Well, I know, having worked with APCC and their stormwater program, their storm drainage, there's lots of things that go down that drain that people out of sight, out of mind. And it's really, I think, up to all of us to maybe make a conscious effort of what we're putting down the drain or down the toilet or down our driveway when we wash our cars.
Absolutely, and what we put on our lawns and on our bodies too. I mean, there are all sorts of choices, and it's up to each person, but each person does make a difference. Sometimes people think, oh, it's not up to me, the town will fix it or the county will fix it, but actually each of us matters. And if you do live by a pond, one of the best things you can do is plant a native buffer strip, and that just means an area that's not lawn or not open that protects stormwater or infiltrates stormwater before it reaches the water. Huge. Huge, huge, huge. And it's just simple, pretty little, doesn't have to block your view, a lovely little buffer zone. So if everyone did that, we'd be in much better shape.
Excellent. We'll have to, I think there's an event coming up that the APCC is doing on gardens as well. And I know Barnstable Clean Water is doing things like that as well. So, if everybody takes just a little bit of time, thinks about what they're doing and makes some small changes, our waters will be much cleaner.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Karen.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Representative Will Crocker has his committee assignments and an update on Nero's bill moving through the legislative process. How does a bill become a law? Well, there's lots of bills now that have actually just made it to committee assignments. With me today, Representative Will Crocker. Will, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, as always. Thank you very much for having me.
So, committee assignments for bills have been assigned, I guess.
For some of them.
For some of them.
For some of them, not all of them yet. They're coming out piece by piece, basically.
And one very special to you, the Nero's bill, as we've been calling it. Tell us a little bit about that and the committee assignment that it got.
Well, now, Nero's bill, which now has a permanent House bill number, which is now H2037. I am the primary sponsor. It's going to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, and it, also the Senate version of that is going to the Senate's Public Safety and Homeland Security. Okay. So, you know, it's a good, favorable location for us. Basically what it is, it's an act to allow emergency responders, first responders, and EMS personnel to be able to treat a police canine who is injured in the line of duty. In Nero's case, with the Sean Gannon incident, he was injured, and there were first responders and people who were trained to be able to handle injured police canines were there and could have responded, but are not allowed to respond in Massachusetts due to the law that does not allow it.
Okay, so let's do a little schoolhouse rock for folks. So obviously you propose a bill and get it sponsored. Mm-hmm. What happens as it goes into committee? How does a bill become a law?
Well, we were very lucky in that when we introduced this bill, you asked for co-sponsors. You asked for members from the House, your colleagues in the House, and your colleagues in the Senate to go on and co-sponsor and say this is something we can support. We were very lucky, and we got 63 members out of the 200 to be able to co-sponsor the bill, which is very significant in the House and the Senate. So what happens now that we know that Bill H2037, I was used to the other number, but it's 2037, is now going to be in the Public Safety and Homeland Security. We can now, we're waiting for it to get a date for which it will come up to be, for the testimony will be heard in front of that committee. And I have had, I can't even count the number of people who have said, when that bill comes up, when you have a date for testimony, let me know. And I've kind of let the committee chairman know that we may need a bigger boat because we may need to have a big hearing room, because people, 50 or 60 people have said that they would come up and testify. We're talking police chiefs, fire chiefs, canine officers, and people who are in the general public who support the police and who support, you know, canine service dogs can get the treatment that they deserve, because as police will tell you, they feel that the canine officers are regular officers and they deserve the medical treatment that that the regular officer would get. So, you know, we're expecting a great number of people to come up when we get a date to be able to testify in support of this bill.
Right. And everybody will be able to see Nero if they go to the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Yarmouth. He's going to be marching with the Grand Marshal, his trainer, as well as his protector, Peter McClellan, will have him at the front of the parade. Yes,
he will be there. I'm going to be marching in the parade too, along with the Lieutenant Governor. And also, we want to tell you that my office nominated Peter McClellan for an American Red Cross, one of the Heroes Awards, and he'll get that presentation next month.
Fantastic. Any other news from the House you want viewers to know?
Well, we've got a couple of other bills that I just want to pass along too. We have a bill that we're still waiting to hear a committee on, which is going to be an act which freezes property taxes for senior citizens at the rate that they're at now. We haven't got a committee assignment for that yet. One of the other things is we're also concerned with children on school buses, and we're filing a bill that's going to be in the Transportation Committee, be in front of the Transportation Committee, that would outfit school buses with cameras on the outside of the vehicles, not the inside, the outside, that watches the roadways. So when we're in such an age now that people are texting and driving, answering their phones and driving, and don't have their full attention on what they're supposed to be doing, which is driving the car. So these would be cameras on the outside of the buses that would record the stop and children, getting off the bus or getting on the bus, and just watching the traffic flow around the bus to make sure that they are, that it's safe. And if someone who blows through, a school bus that has the red flashing lights, we have the video of that person.
Right, and there's been several instances of that just recently, not necessarily here in Barnstable, but in other communities where folks have just kind of just like driven right through those red lights.
Yeah, it's a shame, and it's something that we think we have to do to continuously just make sure kids getting on and off buses are safe.
Great, excellent.
You bet.
Any other pieces, or was those the?
We're working on that one. We're also working on a refile of a bill that we filed 2 years ago, which will allow police officers to be able to report to the Division of Child and Family Services information that they get as part of their investigation on children who are involved in domestic violence issues. Right now, there's a glitch in the law that does not allow police officers to report the information that they get from a domestic violence incident to the Department of Child and Family Services. So it's an easy fix, we hope, but you never know. Sometimes the easy ones are the hardest ones.
Right, exactly. Well, good work. I know there's lots of hearings that'll be happening and lots of work there, so we'll look forward to an update next month.
You bet.
Excellent. Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
Here's a look at the upcoming meetings for boards, commissions, and committees. Comments, suggestions, accolades? Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Email us or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works for you. I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.